the Leafs will be playing kind of in and around when she's in town. I think the Oilers are here when she's playing down the street, which is kind of wild that, like, the Leafs will be playing possibly McDavid. He spoke today, right? And he's on the ice and he's working out. And
they'll be playing him.
I think McDavid's playing, man. I think he'll be playing that game in Toronto. I think is it November 18th? I think it is.
Dude, I think he plays in a couple days.
I think he plays next week. I'm serious. Like, they said 2 to 3 weeks. You know how it is. They overshoot. This guy has been skated yesterday, skated today in an optional. Like, I don't know. Unless he has some sort of weird setback, I would think it's a week. Like, I think he's playing next week.
He might.
I don't know. I'm not
without him, they look pretty good. Without him, no, it's not that you're obviously going to push him aside and say, we don't need you anymore. But maybe you can breathe a little bit easier if you're in Edmonton, that if you need another game, you take it, right? If you need a little bit more time, like the Thatcher Demko story, we keep getting updates on that. He needs a little bit more time, and they're not going to force him back. And Joseph Wall went through that. And
I saw Drake speaking about it today, the Demko thing, saying that they're this is weird, and again, they're very happy that he's progressing in practice by himself. Like, it's just, again, I am happy for him to get back, but it's like that's what they were saying in the playoffs last year,
right,
against Edmonton.
And it's November now, and he has not practiced with his team yet. And Dregs was reporting that today, that the belief is he'll get back into the practice routine at some point this week. And I guess that's the first step to eventually actually playing games. But, yeah, it's been a very consistent theme with Demko, and we'll see what happens with McDavid. But, Draisaitl had, 3 points again last night. Now Hyman's scoring goals, and everyone's all happy again out there. And I looked up.
I told you in Nashville he was going to score. He scored.
Hyman did. He scored. He scored in Calgary last night. They got a game tonight. I think Jersey's in town tonight.
Yeah.
And I looked up, again, I was on Jay a week ago tonight, I think it was. I think it was this time last week, right after McDavid had got injured. And I looked up the Draisaitl Hart odds on FanDuel, and at that time he was 30-1. By the end of last week, I went to look at it after that Nashville game. I'm like, I wonder if that's been updated at all. It was at 25-1. Now, 16-1.
Really?
Which means money's coming in on Draisaitl, and 29 out there is putting his stake in the ground. Like, with or without the big dog, I'm going to make sure this team continues to chug. And he looks great. Kucherov's been great. Kaprizov, we saw him against the Leafs last night, man. He was buzzing around. I even think that was one of his better games this year. And he's leading the league in points right now. So with McDavid out, the door's kind of open, and Matthews not scoring goals, the rocket is kind of open. It feels like we're a month into the season, and all of a sudden a lot of these predictions may be back on the table.
It's too early. I will say this, Brian. Matthews, we've seen this from him before. Like, it's a dry patch, and then all of a sudden the guy's got 10 goals in 12 games, and you're like, oh, yeah, that. Like, I don't know. I was asked about it today. It's like, are you concerned about – I'm not concerned because the guy knows how to score. He's going to get chances. To me, he's getting looks, but his sights are off a little bit. I don't know how you guys feel, but, like, the other goals, same thing with Hyman. Hyman would be in alone, go backhand, try and elevate it. He missed the net, or he hits a pad or hits a post. Like, Matthews has been around some really good looks. He just hasn't, found where in a year last year where everything went in, those ones would go in. It would hit a post and go in. It would, he'd rip it top glove before the goal even moved. I just think it's a patch, but these guys, you could speak to it best. Goal scorers go through patches, and then all of a sudden there's the other patch where it's like, I mentioned 10 goals in 12 games, and that's
and it. I think there's an area, it's okay to say that Auston Matthews has to find a little more consistency in his game. Like, it's not just, this guy's perfect every shift out there and he's getting screwed by good goaltending. He's got to be more consistent in his game. Obviously, around the net, there's some puck luck. There were some shifts last night in Minnesota where he was dominant. First period in St. Louis, he was dominant. His line was dominant. But the second 2 periods in St. Louis, their line was invisible. So there's some inconsistency. He has to just be a little bit more consistent, as does the team, where they have spurts, and it's like, man, this team looks like they're ready to rock. It looks different, blah, blah, blah. And then they'll disappear and fall asleep. So Matthews is no different than the team, where I just think if they develop more consistency, the production will come.
Yeah.
All of them are just kind of popping in with a period here where they get their points, and then it's got to be more consistent.
Well, he's always going to be the lifeline of this team. Like he has been since the first game he played. When he is dancing and rocking and looking like he's on his A game, they look like world beaters. When he fades into a game, he's never a liability. He's never going to be that because he's just too smart of a player, too good of a player. But they become more of a bland-looking team that has a tough time, chasing offense. And that's been the consistent issue through 13 games. They're 6-5-2, the exact same spot they were last year. Yet last year he was ripping home everything and saving them. This year it's not happening. Where I think collectively as a team they've actually been better through 13 games than they were last year. Yet he just is not scoring, and he has not been as dominant. And there have been examples, like you referenced, Noodles. Opening night, he was in alone on Montembeault. Remember that? 3 seconds left, right on top of the crease. Hit him right in the pads. Last year that goes in. The next night against Jersey, had an open net. They had pulled the goal. He missed a wide open net from like the hash marks. And those kind of things can bolster your stats. Yet you look at it, his last 2 goals over his last 7 games, the empty netter, off the boards and in against Seattle, and then the 6-on-5 goal against Boston that got them a point and into the overtime. Yet it wasn't a 5-on-5 goal, and that is what he has dominated at more so than anybody else in the league since he arrived in the league, is 5-on-5 offense, where it just isn't there for him right now. And the power play, they got one last night, but the power play has been so anemic, and a lot of that is he's not scoring on the power play. And that's why I think you can make a glass half full scenario here where they're 6-5-2, yet that guy hasn't broken loose yet. And, everyone's got a different theory on why that is. It could be as simple as what you said, 13 games, you just don't have it for whatever reason, and the next 13 you will, and it will look drastically different. I wouldn't be surprised if there was something to a combination of captaincy, new coach, new system, keep losing in the playoffs, and there's a lot more pressure on you to do it right, quote unquote, and that could be factoring in, and him taking on the responsibility, likely from Berube. I need you to lead by example. I can't have you cheat, because if you cheat, I'm going to have a tough time telling the other guys or what have you. I need you to go out and do that for me. Not
could
that
be
he's
a
been
minor
known
thing,
as
Hazy. Could be a minor thing where you're just thinking a little bit.
It could be that, exactly.
Where a lot of his game, his whole life has been on instinct, where it's like get puck, make a play, go to the net, rip it home. And now he's got the coach, which is the right thing, and it's the right thing for the team to turn the corner in the playoffs, regardless of what all these turkeys are saying. Oh, they got to make more plays. Like, that might just be a little bit of thinking going on when he gets the puck. Like, I got to do the right thing here. And you just said it, can't cheat. It just might just be a little too much thinking as he's on the ice.
Yeah, well, and I think he'll figure that out over time.
I think we noticed it. I personally noticed it from Marner the most, as far as thinking when he's got the puck in the neutral zone. Instead of, he's a very creative guy. And to me, there's times where it's like, okay, he just makes a little soft chip or something, where before it was always button hook. It's always delay. It's always where, they want a little bit more straight line chip and chase. The only guy, and now I could probably make a case for it too. Willie blows a tire that time where he's going kind of south and then realizes, probably shouldn't do that. I'm going to turn up. He blows a tire. They end up scoring. But I think Willie has somewhere along the line has said, to hell with it. I'm going to play the way I need to play to be successful here. But I think the other guys are still finding that. I think Willie's kind of said, I'm going to do what I want here. That's what makes me the most effective. And you can see he's been effective. The other guys might be still adjusting or thinking it instead of reacting. That's kind of what I get out of it.
And, again, through 13 games, what has been established here, and it could still change because there's a lot of hockey left to be played, is that they didn't get a new coach bounce in terms of the standings. In terms of where you are, Florida's off to a good start. Tampa's pretty decent. Everyone else in your division is kind of at the same spot. Montreal's lagging. Buffalo's lagging. But Ottawa has looked pretty good. Tampa's been pretty good. Boston now has won a couple games in a row. They're trying to figure out what they're all about. Detroit kind of in the mix, so to speak. And, again, it's a long season. They're in the same spot they were this time last year, and they more or less cruised to the playoffs, and I still believe that will be the case. But I think, we continue to harp on it. The hope was maybe it would look and feel a little bit different, not only in terms of the style of play, but also in terms of the standings and put yourself in a better position. And that just hasn't happened. They've been good. They haven't been great. They're changing things. Some of their underlying numbers are actually very positive, yet they're 6-5-2. So
I think there's still some of the question marks, though, that come with it. So the power play is certainly one, so special teams. The other one is goaltending.
What'd you think of Wall on Saturday, the Parayko goals?
Okay, I
mean, two of them from distance. You got to get one of those.
I think that's what it's like. It seems his solid performances, there's always that one goal where it's like, man, I don't know about that one. Like, you want to give Parayko one of those, fine, but two of them, I'm not sure about that, man. It seems like just, I don't know. If I can remember of his performances, they're solid, and then there's that one goal where you're like, that just can't go in. And I seem to say that a lot when he's in the net. There's one goal where it's like, that can't go in. And I really don't know what amounts to. Like, if that doesn't change, what is he ultimately? Like a promising goaltender that lets in a bat? Like, what does that equal? You know what I mean?
I think he's got to develop more consistency. Now, I've watched everything as far as analysis and him play and all of that. The other night there was positive and negative about, that St. Louis game. And one of the positives I saw people saying, well, we're not talking about his injury anymore. Great. He's healthy. He's been able to stay healthy for a couple of games. That was a positive that was dragged out of it. I'm like, okay, so if you've got
what is this? Like house league hockey?
I understand that. But so if that's what one positive, so now the next step is push for the net. Make it a competition. Stolarz, I thought, was good last night. He kept dropping his stick. I don't know what the hell was. 6 times he dropped his stick. But he battled in the net, and I loved it. I loved that he battled in the net. He's a big guy. Again, the great unknown is what does it look like game 29, 30 to 50 or whatever he plays, because he's never done it either at the NHL level. But he's battled in the net, and you kind of know what you're getting from Stolarz for the most part nightly, because you've seen it now for 5, 6, 7 games. Wall has to develop some consistency. What are we going to get from Joseph Wall? I still think this battle in the net is far from over, but one guy's held up his bargain, the other hasn't.
Yeah, Wall hasn't. Now, to be fair to him, they haven't supplied him really any offense.
Agreed.
Like both St. Louis games, they just didn't score. In the first one, they didn't really show up much, and you mentioned the second and third period on Saturday, it was ugly. So, at some point you got to give him 3 or 4 goals, and that's where the power play frustrations just continue to show their head, because they had multiple opportunities in the third on Saturday, and they just weren't even close.
Right.
And if you can't get your power play going, if the opponent gets to 3 goals or 4, you're in trouble. Like, you're in big trouble.
Damn right.
Like, you got to be able to tuck in a power play goal or 2. And if you're chasing a game in the third, you really have to rely on that power play to probably, break you even or give you a chance to push it to overtime. And the Leafs just simply have not been able to rely on that. And they went, back to, they had 5 forwards on the ice at one point, a stacked power play. They're throwing everything they can at the wall. And again, Willie got one last night, but that's still an issue because they're well under 10%. And it's inexcusable. It can't continue, and it's got to get better. Yet they got a big week coming up because you got Boston here tomorrow, and Boston has dealt with some turmoil. Like Pasternak got benched for a full period over the weekend.
I don't mind that, though.
I love it.
Yesterday. I
love
mind
it.
that.
And they won. They won multiple games in a row.
Like, Boston is a major hockey market. Can you imagine if that was in Toronto? We would all be in doing a conference-type seminar with Duthie.
It'd be election night.
It would be. We'd have to speak on people. There would be debates. There would be Wolf Blitzer in there. It would be Duthie. It would be a 2-hour special. The benching.
We need John King talking about why he got benched and other players who have been benched.
What areas of Canada agree with the benching?
Yes,
exactly. White, the blue,
the pop it open. Be like, if you go to Saskatchewan here, there's a little pocket. North Regina
that
that
disagree
really,
with Craig Berube.
really disagrees
These
with
guys
Craig Berube.
disagree with. You pop it open, and there it is.
You go out to
These guys-
Calicut here in Alberta. They all agree with Berube. That's his hometown.
Now there's votes coming in still out west, so just wait. We're not calling anything yet. In BC, they're still making the way to the polls.
If that happened in Toronto, man, we would get called in from Lanesy, and he would say, we got to do a special. It's an hour special.
Yeah, it's a full-blown special on
It's so
Marner
true.
or Matthews being benched for a full period.
So funny.
Yet, Montgomery, there was a lot of noise around him, and whether or not he was possibly in trouble if they didn't get on board. And now they've won a couple games in a row, and Pasternak, I think, handled it like a pro. He said everyone knows what the problem was. He turned the puck over at the end of the period. It was the same thing we talked about with Willie when Willie got benched by Berube and Berube was snapping. Tried to make a play at the blue line. Silly, went the other way, almost cost them. And Montgomery said, I'm going to put my foot down here. So you got Leafs Boston tomorrow, and both are kind of at a crossroads here. You've got Detroit coming up. Detroit, again, these are divisional games. You've got Ottawa
Montreal,
coming up.
is it
Montreal on Saturday coming up. Yeah. And, so you're going to face teams within your own division here that have had struggles. You're going to have home games here, and you should be able to take advantage. So it's a big month because, they were flashing it last night and talking about it throughout the weekend that the Leafs, for the past number of years have struggled in October and always got back on the horse in November.
Yeah.
And historically had great Novembers to kind of even things out or get back into a pace car position that you wanted to be in, and then you build on it from there. Well, they played twice in November, and they picked up 1 point. So time to get going here.
And, Hayes, I kind of agree with the idea of, it's one of those old hockey things that people talk about every year, but I kind of agree with it. Like, come American Thanksgiving at the end of November or whenever it lies, you kind of know what you got. So that's
you're talking 20 games, man.
Yeah,
that's
you're
25% of your year.
Yeah, and it's when you get there, and you say it a lot. Sometimes you are what your record shows. So it's like, let's see what you got this month. Let's turn it around, and you generally do that. You get it cooking, and you show that you separate from the pack. And why should this year be any different? But it's going to come with questions if it doesn't happen rapidly, right? They're going to be like, why are they believing in Craig Berube's systems? Why would a team that had so much success change? It's all going to come up if they don't get it together, right?
Yep. It's on them to play the games and rack up points.
They got to do that. And to me, they're just – I think most teams, though, and this is where, it's throughout the league. There's only a couple teams that haven't had, any disconnect yet. There's nights where you're watching and it's like, okay, that team has been rock solid, and then the next night they get blown out. And you're like, okay, that's an off night or whatever. And we've seen it from everybody. Tampa, Tampa was up 2-0 yesterday in that game, looked pretty good, and then Winnipeg just started rolling, and now they lose 7-4. A couple of empty netters. It was really 5-4 game, but to me, I think there's been pockets of every team throughout the league outside of, I'd say, Florida.
Winnipeg, Florida.
Vegas
Florida has been pretty good. Minnesota's been good, too.
Well, Minnesota's been really good. But
really good.
You look at it, everybody else has had, a couple games here, a couple games there that not all together, but kind of, to me, where they haven't looked their best. And that's where teams got to get connected as the season gets going here.
Well, and, Scott O'Neill had been a part of that staff in Winnipeg, but there is that new coach bump that if you believe in it or not, Winnipeg's 11-1.
Yeah.
What a start to your year. You have 22 points, and it's the first week of November. You probably have a number on the whiteboard. You're like, you get to 95 points, you're probably in the playoffs. There's, it's still a long way to go. But all of a sudden, you play 500 hockey the rest of the way, you're probably in based on this start. And you can really take advantage and possibly win your division or the conference or maybe the President's Trophy and put yourself in a real driver's seat there in terms of, the route you could take on a long playoff run. So credit to Winnipeg because that was awesome last night. Outside of that Leaf game, the Leafs beat them a week ago tonight.
Dude, they slap everybody.
They're undefeated. They don't even go to overtime or anything, or it seems that way.
Yeah. They put a sixth spot up every night.
Yeah, that offense is just chugging, man, and they're getting it from basically all through their lineup. Ehlers is healthy; he looks good. Connor's been great. Velarde's been good. Perfetti's been outstanding to start the year in terms of point collection.
Yeah.
Morrissey is what he is. Just a really good, stable number one defenseman.
I was looking yesterday, so Chevy, we've had him on the show. We always talk about Winnipeg having to draft and develop, just because that market you have to have cost, control over some of your players and that. Logan Stanley. That guy's a monster. That's what the Leafs want. Yanni Hakanpää to be Logan Stanley with the.
And they've
Winnipeg
been patient
Jets.
with that Stanley too, Noodles, because there was times in the last couple of years
In
where
and
it
out
was
of the
like, what are
lineup,
we
man.
doing with this guy? Can he play or can he not play? And they stuck with him, and now he looks like he could be a player.
But you know what? He's slotted nice. He's not playing in your top four. He's a guy who he's a big, strong, mean, stay-at-home defenseman. Yesterday I don't think he got the Gordie Howe hat trick, but he scored a nice goal. He has a huge hit in the neutral zone on Glendening. He fights, to me, but that's just okay, we drafted, developed this guy. We were patient with him, and, that's a plug-and-play type of player that, other teams have to go and overpay for or trade and try and find that type of player, where Winnipeg is kind of, Cole Perfetti's a nice example too. He's kind of coming into his own. They bridged him instead of this long-term deal, and to me, he looks like a nice player. But again, it's early. I'm going to caution, because we've seen this with Winnipeg, best team in the league January 1st, and then it's things change.
It's a long way to go, man.
It's a long season, but
it
they
is
look
a marathon.
very good right now.
It is a marathon, and no question, they got 70 games left to play.
Yeah.
So, there's going to be ups and downs, undoubtedly. Raptors back in action tonight. We'll come back and get into some of the weekend news. It was pretty crazy in the NFL. We got a big one tonight, Chiefs-Bucks at Arrowhead.
Yeah, Doogie with the layup for you guys.
Well,
insane.
I got some things to address with Doogie.
You guys,
honestly.
This group text is just out of control. There's just infighting, and
Doogie, he just why doesn't he just hand you 2 points? Whatever, it's a joke.
I mean, Doogie, I was genuinely disappointed there wasn't a standings update tweet last night, which is generally standard procedure. But Hazenbro had ourselves a great day. You guys puked all over yourselves last night like we predicted you would.
What are you, Marty St. Louis? Give us a break, man.
Well, I mean, it's just a reality. And there's Doogie and then Joe from the Bridge talking about how great you guys were all weekend. I'm like, wait a minute. They actually were pretty awful over the course of the weekend. Layup with that Cowboys game, and now Dak's out week to week with the hamstring issue.
It almost seems like Jerry Jones went to Dak Prescott and said, look, man.
Yeah.
Let's ease the pain on everybody here, and let's just make this 4 weeks. And then we've got a built-in excuse.
Tank it.
Tank. It's a dignified, behind-the-scenes tank. Did you see Dak like lip reading? You could see his mouth. He's like, man, we suck.
Do you think he said we suck? Because that's what everyone's read on it was.
Yeah. Well, he said we bleep and suck. It's like, I don't know. And it's true. You do suck. But when you're paying a guy 60 sheets a year and he's on the bench, in that setting, sometimes you grab a beer in the back of a bus and you say to somebody, man, we suck right now. But that's
poison,
look.
man. You can't have guys telling other guys.
That is poisonous.
And then he not pulls a shoot. I guess he's hurt, but you can't have your star quarterback, highest paid guy in the league.
Imagine the dynamic
complaining.
of him trying to be a hero and saying to somebody in practice, you might want to do that, and somebody be like, you're making $60 million and you're on the sideline saying we suck, and you're actually going to try to tell me about work ethic.
Tough.
That's a tough thing to get over as far as the chain of command, leadership, all that other jazz.
Yeah. It's a tough look, man. That's McCarthy's got to be freaking out. Because Mike McCarthy knows what's coming, man.
I don't know if there's an underpants cam that would be on the top of the leaderboard like Mike McCarthy's, dude.
Yeah, it's got to be outrageous.
Can you do an underpants list?
I could give you a list. You want me to? I'll give you the
list?
underpants cam list on Thursday. I can do that.
That's your list this
Thursday. I
Thursday.
could definitely do that. And Mike McCarthy is...
He might be number one.
He is definitely in the running. It would be a shock if he wasn't in the list. He will be.
DVP skid marks.
Yeah.
DVP.
It is possibly carnage for Mike McCarthy and the underpant camp because they're in trouble, and now Dak's out and they don't have a backup. And
dude, Mike McCarthy's just let's just fire me, man. Get it over.
Part of it may be thinking that, let's just rip the Band-Aid off because that team is not going anywhere anytime soon either. You know, like Luke was saying it last night. We'll get into it with Luke at 5. But they don't stop the run. They don't stop the pass.
It's everything. They just the quarterback's right. They do suck. I have to question my Partsy, and I would question it to his face. How is he taking Indy over Minnie?
I don't know. He's the biggest Brian Flores fan in the world too. That Flores defense from Minnie had Joe Flacco seeing ghosts last night. You know, and like Flacco. It was a great story last year, off the couch, Cleveland. He's not replicating that again.
You can't go to the off the couch guy 2 years in a row.
Exactly.
That's the number one rule in sports. I don't
Number
care
one.
if it's a hockey player, a football player. When you get that year off the couch, it's done after that, and you have to know that. But unfortunately, they got another quarterback who takes plays off, and they had to bench his ass, and they had to go back to Flacco.
I know. There were quarterbacks yesterday that were just flat out throwing to the other team. I think Geno Smith was one of them. Like, it was ridiculous. They were like just the picks were there were. None of the teams were available for the pass, so we just throw the other team. It was ridiculous.
Well, like that Jordan Love pick 6 at the end of the first half.
That was tough. That was tough. Like,
he's had real issues with turnovers, and you know it's not the nature of the NFL, the sport, to mail it, to take a week off when you can play. But retrospectively, with the Packers going into a bye this week, they should have done that. They should have played Malik Willis, given him an extra full week to recover, prepare for the second half, because the Lions are a juggernaut. They're going to win the North, probably be top seed in the NFC. If you're the Packers, you're a wild card team. Like, that's what's coming.
Yeah. Well,
so you just embrace it and move on and try to finish with the best record you can.
Flex? Is this like true that I'm reading the schedule flex for Sunday night?
I don't know. I haven't seen it. What does it say?
Schedule flex. The NFL has flexed the Colts Jets out of Sunday Night Football in Week 11. It's being replaced with Chargers Bengals. That's
surprising to me. That is surprising. Although, you know what that is? That's Aaron Rodgers and Jets fatigue. People are sick of watching them in primetime.
I know, dude, but still, everyone, it's like people love hating them. I would still love to hate watch them and be like, okay, what do you got tonight?
It is
as
surprising.
bad as the team is, I still would want to watch it, be miserable and fail.
Yeah, and it's New York, and it's Rodgers, and they're all in the same boat. Like Jets, Colts, Chargers, Bengals are all kind of chasing the wild card spots in the AFC. It's not like the Bengals are 4-5, and I think the Chargers are 4-4 or something like that. Like they're and the Colts are 4-5 or whatever they are now. Like they're all in the same boat. So it'd be one thing if you flexed it for Kansas City versus Detroit. You're like, okay, I get that. Obviously, two powerhouse teams, or Baltimore, Buffalo, or something. But to flex it for the Bengals and the Chargers when neither team is a juggernaut right now, if that's accurate, that is kind of a strange play. Luke, coming up in about a half an hour, we will tee up again the Monday Nighter tonight. Raptors in action. We'll get into the Vince Carter ceremony over the weekend.
Man.
And we're half an hour away from baseball free agency opening up. Maybe Juan Soto's walking down Taylor Swift Way right now. Yeah. Juan Soto might be on Taylor Swift Way right now. It's possible. OverDrive continues. TSN 1050 and on the TSN app. OverDrive continues, brought to you by FanDuel, bringing you everything from the opening line of the final score. Fighting it today, man. I was in the rink for 12 hours this weekend.
Oh, you know what? Going from outside to inside, freezing your ass off, all of that. I can tell you're probably a little stuffed, your throat and all of that.
I'm dying here, man. I'm dying. And it's great to be back in the rinks. We've been in the rinks for, a while now, I guess. But the weather's been so nice. So you go in, maybe hoodie, pair of jeans, and a hat. You get into the rink, and it's like -10 in there. The
rinks are colder than ever. I don't know if it's because when you're a kid, you just don't think about it. I've gone in late summer, my daughter's hockey games with shorts and a light hoodie on or something. It's like you are done by the first
toast, man,
dude. Yeah, you got to go out in the lobby. You got to pretend that you need it.
But a lot of the rinks now, they have indoor watching areas, which I love.
Yes, those are basically mandatory for new rinks, right?
Yeah.
You basically have to have them, which did not exist back in the day. There were never indoor viewing options.
Dude, I played in rinks that had fence.
Yes.
Not glass, fence.
Yeah.
Chicken wire. I played in chicken wire. The chicken wire was behind you, it would hit. Sometimes pucks would get caught in it, like get caught in the chicken wire. Or if it hit behind you, it wouldn't be a clean bounce to the front of the net. It could change angles or whatever. Like, I think I've told you, like, I played in a Western Hockey League game in Seattle where there was no glass. It was chicken wire. And the fans were, like, yelling at you through the fencing. That's was ridiculous.
Crazy. Like, a game of that level is crazy. And, like, I don't know if they still do it anymore, but the city used to run, like, house leagues out of outdoor rinks. Like, I remember skating on outdoor rinks in Toronto when I was a kid. I'd go out there just playing shinny or whatever. And it was such a bummer because you'd show up and you back then, no cell phones. You talk to your buddies and say, all right, I'll meet you there at 8 o'clock, 7 o'clock, whatever. And you'd walk to the rink and they'd have a league going. So the rinks would be filled. You couldn't go out. You couldn't play shinny.
What do you mean, a league? Like beer league? Or
no,
like
kids, like 10-year-old kids. Like, we're talking like house leagues being run out outdoor rinks. And I don't know if they do that anymore. And I remember thinking, man, it is freezing out here.
Yeah. We used to practice at the outdoor rink in St. Albert, like right by my house all the time. My mom would put a toque on top of my, like, helmet. That was it. Like, that was our ear. People had earmuffs. Now, keep in mind, we go there every weekend. There'd be guys in jeans. There'd be fights. It was
oh, dude, I saw so many. I can't say so many, but I'll never forget this mental image of one guy absolutely Scott Stevensing somebody at an outdoor rink, North Toronto. This guy came across him. Hey, we're playing shinny, and some guy came and buried him. And everyone on the ice stopped collectively, and they're like, what the hell are you doing? Like, what are you doing? God. And the guy got up thinking, okay, I'm going to get in a fight. It's like, it's shinny. There's kids, there's adults, there's people in jeans, there's people that have sticks that are facing the wrong way. It's sticks in the middle, goofy stuff under the lights. What the hell do you think you're doing? And, those are the best memories because you'd go and tell all your buddies that you saw some guy, some lunatic throwing hits at an outdoor rink the night before. But anyway, it was a wild weekend in the city because Saturday night the Vince Carter celebration, and I got to give credit to the team because I stand where I stand. I haven't changed my mind on that. But and as I've said countless times since they made the announcement, if you're going to do it, you have to do it right, and that was A+ in terms of that ceremony, in terms of the build up, in terms of the payoff. The actual banner looks incredible. Naturally they pick him dunking, and I think that was probably from the dunk contest, or I don't know if he ever did that during a live game, but the crowd was very into it. He was emotional. I thought his speech was good. His family was there, and credit to the organization because if you're going to do it, and and there's another thing that comes with this that I do think has to be remembered, and maybe I look past this, is that, they've shared that rink with the Leafs forever, and the Leafs have so much history in that building, and so many banners, and so many numbers retired, and so many legends, and the Raptors just haven't had that. And, I think there's a lot of Raptor fans, regardless of how they feel about Vince, they felt like that was a monumental moment that they had their own guy in the rafters. And there's a Raptor up there representing it. And so I'll give the organization credit.
They did an incredible job.
They did a great job.
Like, it was top shelf, but I'm almost glad it's over because we know what this year is going to be. Like, we've seen some performances where it's just like they're going to get their ass handed to them a bunch this year.
Yeah.
And this is the first, like, look over here, don't worry about the team record or how bad we are. And now that that's over with. But I just find it extremely difficult if all that pro sports is about is winning championships. And this guy seems like a genuinely solid dude. Like, now that he's retired, he's in his mid-40s. He seems like a good guy, and it's like he's emotional, and it's great, but I don't know how it went from him and his playing days, which was not that long ago. This guy played till he was 43 years old, I think. And the big thing when he came to town was, are they going to boo him or are they going to cheer him? And that was just the big thing. Like, what are they going to do when they show Vince on the Jumbotron? And then all of a sudden, he just had to jump ahead of everybody and have his number retired. I don't know how that happened. it seemed like I remember one year the Raps were in the playoffs and they showed Vince and Masai walking into the building. I don't know. It might have been in G State. I don't know where it was. But maybe they're tight. Maybe they somehow become tight over the years. There was talk of bringing Vince back like a couple of years ago. I don't know how much truth there was to that. But I just don't know how that he would have jumped ahead of the normal thing, which was Kyle Lowry being the first jersey retired. Like, did they desperately have to have that look-away moment? I don't know.
Well, I don't think
it just seems so forced, Hayes. Like, the crying and all this stuff, it's like, really, all of a sudden there's all this emotional attachment to Toronto after all these years? Like, I don't know.
Well, and now he goes to Brooklyn, and he's going to have his number retired down there, and he's going to do the same thing.
Exactly.
Like he's going to do the same thing in Brooklyn in a month and a half or 2 months.
Like, did Toronto find out about Brooklyn and say, hey, we got to do this before that? Like, is that what happened?
Obviously, they claim that the wheels were in motion beforehand, but they announced it after Brooklyn had announced it. Right. And I don't believe it's a coincidence that they jumped in front of Brooklyn. I think Brooklyn announced, we're doing it January, whatever, and the Raptors are like, well, we're doing it before that. We got to get out in front of this. And listen,
there's a free pass right there when the Brooklyn Nets are doing it. It's like, let them retire his jersey. Do we have to do it too?
Yeah,
well, they chose to do it, though. That's the thing. Now it's done, and there's no turning back on it. And the fans again we're very into it and emotional. And I think he's a polarizing guy. He always will be. It was always a little bit awkward listening to him speak of it because you could tell he understood the awkwardness of it. He kept saying, like, whichever way you feel about me, like, how often do you ever see a legend say that? Ever. Like, what legend comes into town and goes? Never.
Yeah,
like,
Matt Sundin's not going,
hey, I know a lot of you hate me, or don't like the way this happened or whatever. Like, that just generally doesn't happen, which is very unique to Vince in his story. But, again, this idea, because I was going back and forth with people over the weekend that I don't hate on Vince. I'm over the whole thing. I've said that countless times. Bring him back, salute him, 30th anniversary, big night. It's a difference between that and then the over-the-top celebration or retiring the number, which I disagreed with. I didn't think that was something that he was worthy of having, but they decided to make that call, and that's fine. What bothers me are a couple of things. There are really one of them's in his control. The other one's out of his control. The revisionist history on how he went out has always bothered me, and that was again evident this weekend. That he never took responsibility for the way he went out, what he said, what he did, the way he acted. But also, it speaks to the insecurity of the market, and that was always what was at the forefront of the whole Vince phenomenon. Was he put us on the map? Whose map? The Americans? ESPN's? That's what it was. We were acknowledged. We were cool. The Americans knew who we were because we had Vince.
His dunks made ESPN Sports Center.
Exactly, and that's not his fault. That has nothing to do with Vince. That's our insecurities as a market. And, they were exposed again. And yet, again, from a standpoint of the entertainment value and the class of the organization and the way that they went about it, it was an incredible ceremony. It really was. And I thought he handled it great. And like you said, Vince is a likable guy. I don't hate on. I'm completely over what happened 20 years ago. That's separate from the complete pendulum swing of retire and celebrate and forget and love and he's the greatest. That's a bridge too far for me, but a lot of people are willing to go down that road. And to each their own. And the Raptors got the win, which was cool. Grady Dick played great. R.J. Barrett played great. Drake tried to steal the show by getting involved with DeMar DeRozan because of the rap video and his Kendrick Lamar issues in the past. And you guys want to hear Drake, who was on with Devlin and Jack over the weekend? Here's Drake with Matty D and Jack Armstrong.
If you ever put a DeRozan banner up, I'll go up there and pull it down myself. That's the answer to your question.
Well, he gonna have a long way to climb to take it down. So tell him good luck.
So. At the forefront of that's the Drake versus Kendrick Lamar thing, and now Drake hates Lamar, I guess, because Lamar, I guess, sided with Kendrick Lamar, and Lamar's from Compton, Kendrick's from Compton. I don't know. It seems ridiculous to even talk about.
Dude, it's like grown-ass men.
That's what's scary, is that it's grown adults who are, cannot let it go. And, I guess it's personal for Drake, but I'm sure if you're the Raptors, you're like, wait a minute, Drake. the global ambassador stuff, I don't even know what the hell that means. Who knows what it is, what it's worth. Drake's done a lot for the Raptors, clearly, because of who he is in his profile, and he's kind of one of the faces of the team, and that's just a reality. But so is DeMar DeRozan. Like, DeMar's done a lot for this team and a lot for the franchise. And
just petty. I don't know. It's petty.
It just seemed kind of goofy more than anything else.
It is goofy. I don't know. Don't get me started on that guy.
All right. We'll leave it there. Luke Wilson in 15 minutes. More on the Leafs weekend and Leafs Bruins tomorrow night as we move forward here as well. OverDrive continues. TSN 1050 and on TSN 4. All right, OverDrive continues. Brought to you by FanDuel, bringing you everything from the opening line to the final score. Luke Wilson in about 10 minutes on news out of Indy. I guess Joe Flacco is just going to remain their quarterback. That's the report out of Indy. They're going to stick with Flacco the rest of the year.
That's crazy.
Did you see the other guy? He got caught yawning on the bench yesterday.
I know that. Can't do it, man.
Dude,
that's tough, man. Like, this guy just...
you got to have a dad. You got to have an agent that calls you and or a best friend that says, whatever you do, this is what you got to tell him not to do. You can't get caught on the sidelines, like, yawning or something. What does he do? He gets caught yawning. Mm-hmm. It's just like, come on, man.
Yeah,
you gotta put a headset on, a clipboard. You act like you're fake writing something on that clipboard every single play.
Exactly. Pretend like you gotta fake it to make it. You know cameras will be on you. These guys nowadays know that the camera is on them 24/7. This guy's yawning. Like, it's such a bad look, and it's so disrespectful. Like, it is. I know people won't think it's not that big of a deal, but it's the optics of it, literally.
You have to muffle that yawn, man. Like, it doesn't matter if you blow your neck out.
Exactly.
You have got to fight with that and own it. Yeah. And that's the amazing thing. Like, between Dak and his, blurting out, we believe, allegedly, based on lip readers, we suck, and not in those words. And Anthony Richardson yawning yesterday. It's like, what is going on with these guys? Yeah, everything's in 4K. You're in the NFL. You're never getting away with anything on the sideline. They're going to catch you.
Now, did Burrow say something, too? I thought I saw there was some lip readers.
Yeah, I didn't get the gist of that because they won big yesterday.
I know. And was it a little dispute with maybe a receiver? So I don't know.
It was more of a... Yes, he took issue with I don't remember the detail of it. I saw that too, Noodles, but I didn't get to the bottom of what happened there.
Yeah, I didn't, because I was like, what? Where are they, getting pissy? They won, they should be happy. Mm-hmm. But, it was probably an individual play or some guy wanted some yards or something.
That happens all the time, right? Like, I'm open, don't worry about it. Like, especially in a blowout, guys are trying to rack up stats or whatever.
Yeah, exactly.
That can go both ways, too. I mean, sometimes the quarterback will make dumb plays. Yeah. And the offensive line will get into it. Like, hey, you're killing us here, man. You got to throw that away. We're up big, whatever it is. Tonight, Chiefs-Bucks. Last time I checked, the spread was 9.5. I believe it's either 9 or 9.5 on FanDuel. It is 9.5. That's a monster spread. And, the Bucks are 4-4. They're dealing with a lot of injuries. That's the issue. But Baker's been pretty good. Their run game's been pretty good. Their front seven's been pretty good. But it kind of feels like one of those nights where maybe the doors are blown off and Mahomes has one of those big offensive evenings. That's kind
still
of what
a big.
It feels like.
It's pretty clear what you've just decided. Like, I can tell that your pick's going to be Mahomes, and you don't bet against Mahomes on Monday night. Still a lot of points, man.
It's a lot of points. It's
a
lot of points. 9.5 is a massive, massive number.
Massive number for a Monday night football game.
Yeah. All right, we'll get to Luke. Al's brother will join me. We'll have tremendous information, some gut instinct, and a pick. Hayes and Bro on the clock. Get Luke's take on what he saw yesterday throughout the NFL. And Dave Naylor coming up as well on the CFL playoffs. Shout out to the Argos. What a performance in the second half. Chad Kelly, you talk about learning from experience 58? Last year. Dude, they put 58 on the board in the second half. It was a track meet to watch them play. They won big, and obviously BC, they're going home. Right? That's the Grey Cup's in BC this year. It's in Vancouver. The Lions aren't going to be a part of it. So more on that with the Nail Gun later this afternoon as well. OverDrive continues. TSN 1050 and on TSN 4.